Hello.
Hello, hello.
I'm not sure if they're able to hear. Hello?
Oh yeah, then check the stream.
For most of the night, I'm below 50.
Dude, that is normal. That is, I mean, below 50 is fine, but low 40s is kind of stretching.
Well, low 40s. Because this is from 50 to 25.
Hello? Can somebody check the stream?
Yeah, there's audio.
There's audio?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yay, okay.
Cool. Just move this.
All right, so hello to any viewers.
Hello.
This is our first fall 2022 EVE Club Senior interview, and our special guest today is Cordelia. So to start our viewers off, how are you doing today?
Pretty good, pretty good. Yeah, don't have any classes before this, so I just kind of rolled up.
Nice. So to give everyone a little introduction, what's your name, what's your major, and age and pronouns if you're comfortable.
My name is Cordelia. I'm 19. I'm an anthropology major, specifically focusing on archaeology and on archaeological textiles. Pronouns are she, her.
All right. So to, I guess, start at the beginning, do you want to tell us a little bit about how did you find out about EEP?
I found out about EEP. Okay, so my father has been a professor here since I was 3.
Oh, wow.
So he had EEPsters in his class, and to be completely truthful, he did not want me in the program because he associated the EEPsters in his class with being kind of loud and kind of a little bit annoying. So it was actually my stepmom who pushed me to get into the program a little bit more. Yeah. So I found out about it through my dad, but my stepmom was really the one who kind of pushed me to
That's funny.
do the program.
So what was your expectation of EEP before joining versus was it different when you actually joined?
Yes. I don't know. I had this it's difficult because you don't really have any expectations. For me, at least, I didn't really have any expectations because I didn't know of any other program like it. How it was kind of pitched to me was like this is just kind of like completely wrong, but it was pitched to me as kind of like a high school style community, but just in college, and that's definitely like not the case at all.
Really?
When I got into EEP, it's a very different program than it is right now. Very different kind of
Oh.
culture and community, I think.
Yeah.
Just like a lot of fun. I remember my Pravi summer and like my first year being like a lot of fun and making a lot of friends and stuff like that. So, yeah.
How would you say it's different from a few years ago till now?
That's an interesting one. I feel like I don't know. For me at least, I kind of made friends with a lot of like people who were like elders when I was like a first and second year. And so the kind of like shift for me, also people like over 18 not being allowed in the kitchen. I feel like that was a kind of a big cultural shift for me as well in terms of EEP spaces. Trying to think of some other good examples, but yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So, if we were to go back in time, what advice would you give yourself in that first semester of college?
First semester of college, probably not to try to. I tried to like kind of force myself into like a STEM major because I felt like it was what I should do. And I tried to really kind of, I was a bio major for like my first semester, and then I was a bio minor in my for until my sophomore year. And I tried to kind of like force myself into something that really wasn't working for me. And just because I felt like, and there was a lot of little peer pressure to do it as well. But I felt like it was kind of like the thing that I should be doing, and the thing that would make me like quote unquote like academic was to do that. And I feel like actually listening to what I wanted, and that kind of that's advice I would give to anyone, is just to listen to what you actually want and not what you think you should want. You know what I
Right.
mean? Yeah.
Yeah, as kids, do you think it's important for EEPsters to kind of learn their own, to figure out their own autonomy within
Exactly.
college?
Yeah. Figuring out your own autonomy, like figuring out what you want versus what your parents want versus what your peers will like think you should be doing, and EEP in general. I don't know if it's less so now, but when I came in, it was mostly like STEM, pre-med, pre-law, and those were kind of like, or engineering, and those were kind of like the options. And if you wanted to go outside of those things, if you wanted to do something more like social science or art or humanities or something like that, it was kind of like you were kind of on your own a little more. There weren't as many like peers doing like the same thing as you. So that was something that I found kind of challenging in terms of like, and that kind of forces you to have your own autonomy in a certain sense, because you're not really, you have to kind of forge a path for yourself outside of like your peers and outside of EEP. Yeah. I think listen to your peers to a certain extent, but in terms of finding your own autonomy, I find that like kind of like being able to tune out what people around you are saying is really important.
Right. So let's say maybe go even further back. Let's say a student is deciding whether or not they want to apply to EEP. What do you think are the main qualifications and considerations to enter college at such a young age?
I think that beyond academic achievement, beyond academic achievement, beyond being smart, beyond like all of that stuff, I think it's really important that you are independent, that you're an independent kind of person, that you do things like by yourself and for yourself. I think that's important. I also think it's important in general, that you have a sense of maturity, like just as an example, my first year, there was a professor that would like swear a lot, and there would be EEPsters who were like legitimately like covering their ears on their desk and like stuff like that. And it's just kind of like one of those things where like, okay, you're an adult. Well, you're in an adult setting. When you're not an adult, you kind of have to be okay with hearing adult things and exploring adult themes. I think that's really
Right.
important as well. Just kind of having a sense of maturity, kind of having yeah, just a sense of maturity, a sense of responsibility, and a sense of independence, I think is kind of the most important thing in
Yeah.
like a potential Eepster.
Totally.
Yeah.
Um, so this is kind of a pretty broad question that I have
Mhm.
here. So, what are the pressures and the freedoms that come with beginning college before the normal or accepted age?
Oh, pressures and freedoms. Okay. I think one of the main freedoms for me was kind of still having oh gosh. I could go on for a little while about this.
Yeah, we'd
Yeah.
love to hear it.
So I think both a pressure and a freedom for me is like being able to like live at home and like stay with your parents. Also, however, I feel like a lot of it is like you're missing out. You're kind of almost missing out. Like I have some friends who are like having like the traditional like college experience right
Mm.
now, and it's hard not to feel coming in at such a young age is hard not to feel a little bit of like FOMO about like,
Mm.
you know, not getting like the complete real high school experience, not getting a traditional college experience. I feel like that's kind of one of the main like drawbacks or one of the main
Mm.
like deficits about coming in at such a young age is because you don't get like, you know, like formal's nice, but you don't get like, you know, like the high school prom or like things like that, and then you also don't get like living in dorms with
Right.
like your freshman year. You know what I mean? It's kind of like one of those things. In terms of other pressures, um, for me at least, kind of social pressures like interacting. I'm fine with interacting with people older than me, but like a lot of other people I've noticed have like a lot of fear about interacting with
Mm.
like regular Cal State LA students because Cal State LA students on average are older than most college students as well. Yeah, yeah, so that's definitely one pressure. Like my second year, I was tutoring statistics, and I was regularly tutoring people. I was like 16, and I was like regularly tutoring people in like their 30s and 40s, and
Mm.
it's kind of like one of those like strange things where you're like, oh, okay, like this is like a weird social scenario
Yeah.
that I have to navigate. That's definitely one of the pressures. Yeah, there's also a lot of freedom to it. I mean, there's also a lot of like no pressure, right? Because like obviously there's pressure in going into college early, but there's also like you're going to 15, you go in at 15, you could easily do another bachelor's after this and really not be that far back. You know
Mm.
what I mean? Kind of one of those things. You could do a second bachelor's, you have like all of the time in the world
Right.
to have like a second career as well. It's kind of like one of those things that's like pretty awesome about Eve is that
Yeah, a lot of
you,
leeway.
yeah, you come in so young, you can do anything. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. So, where do you think you would be right now had you not come to the early entrance program at Cal State LA? What would you imagine theoretically your life to be like?
Well, right now, I probably would have waited another year. I came in after ninth grade. I probably would have
Mm.
left after 10th grade, done like 2 years at a community college, and then transferred to a UC. That was going to be my plan if I didn't
Mm.
get in. Um, so yeah, right now I would probably be in like my yeah, since I did 5 years here, I would probably be in my senior year at a UC.
Yeah.
That's kind of probably doing very similar things right now, applying to PhD programs and stuff
Wow.
like that. So that's yeah.
That's actually, I guess I'm like not the kind of person that has backup plans. I'm usually like just really, really holding out on one
Yeah.
path forward, but
Yeah.
it seems like you really have things fleshed out like that, and I admire that a lot. So you're going to get your bachelor's degree very soon. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Um, how have you maintained motivation thus far, and how do you plan on maintaining in the future?
Maintaining motivation. Um, I maintain motivation through a lot of things, mostly through like I have a lot of passion for like my field and for what I do, and I feel like that's the main way I maintain motivation is like thinking about like advancing in my field and thinking about like all of the cool stuff that I'm gonna get to see and I'm gonna get to do, and all the stuff I'm gonna get to research if I ever like if I finish and if I do my PhD, like honestly, like my passion for like what I do is kind of like my main motivation to like get through my bachelor's degree and to get through my hopefully my PhD program.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is your dream PhD program?
Oh gosh, I'm looking at a bunch right now. I'm taking a gap year after this actually, so I can like more focus and apply. I'm applying to the anthropological archaeology program at UCSD is one that I'm looking at right now. Yeah, I'm just looking at a bunch of different more anthropologically focused archaeology programs.
Um, so I guess for someone who's really not explored, like myself, not explored the world of anthropology at all, could you, let's say I wanted to take an anthropology course, what would the course entail?
Okay, so it would depend on what field of anthropology you want to take, like the course. And there are 4 fields of anthropology. There's cultural, biological, archaeology, and linguistics. Anthropology is the study of like human culture. That's the best way I can describe it. Human culture, human remains, basically the study of like humanity, right? But from a specific from a specific, more holistic viewpoint. So what it would entail? I mean, if you're taking like intro to cultural anthropology, it would entail like reading ethnographies, learning basic anthropological theory, stuff like kin structure and like kind of basic theories. What is culture? What do we define as culture? What do we define as human culture? What is cultural relativity, et cetera, et cetera. If you're taking an intro archaeology class, it would be a little bit different. It would probably be like you would kind of have similar things, but going over like main sites, basics of like archaeological practice and archaeological theory. Yeah.
So your area of anthropology is archaeology, right?
Archaeology, yeah.
So what drew you to that specific area? Did you know that you wanted to go into that area initially, or did you kind of test the water?
Initially, I was focused on forensics and biological archaeology, which is completely different. Human remains are like their whole other thing. But I kind of decided on archaeology because I really kind of fell in love with textiles and with textile research. I just like I've always had kind of like an interest in like historical fashion, historical textiles, and then I kind of like discovered like the field of like textile archaeology, and I was like, oh, this is what I want to do. Yeah, it was kind of like a really cool moment for me. Yeah, was kind of like figuring out that this is what I wanted to do and just kind of pursuing it. Yeah.
That's awesome. So, do you want to tell everyone a little bit more about the research that you're doing now and your thesis?
Yes. My thesis is on it's on a collection of chanque textiles. They're 8th century textiles from Peru. They're from Peru. They're incredibly. They're in the special collections at the library right now. The way that I'm focusing on their weave structure and weave patterns, and I'm trying to relate it to, because I've noticed some modern weaving patterns in Peru today that are quite similar, and so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to figure out the connection between these ancient textiles and then their modern counterparts.
Yeah, that's really cool. So do you have an ultimate career goal or an endpoint, or let's say big picture for your career?
My ultimate goal is to probably become a professor and to teach, and preferably at a university that has good research funding so that I can continue to do research. And that's kind of my main goal is become a professor and be able to do research at the same time.
You said research funding. What is the anthropology department here like? How would you describe it?
The anthropology department here is actually really good. I've really enjoyed my time here. yeah, the anthropology department, it does have pretty good funding. I mean, not ideal, but because we're at Cal State LA, but yeah, pretty good. We have amazing professors. I love all of my professors. I love the program. Yeah.
Excuse my ignorance, but is the anthropology, I guess, field at Cal State LA very competitive?
We're a very small program right now. Actually, I think we only have like something like 150 majors, so
wow.
we're pretty small in terms of departments. But yeah, the field of anthropology in general, I would say it depends on what field you're going into. If you're going into like forensics, then yeah, super competitive. If you're going into bioarchaeology, pretty competitive. If you're going into cultural, if you're going into archaeology, there's some competition, but it's kind of like it depends on like if your research interests are like novel or if like things like that, rather than like it's not like competitive in the traditional sense. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. So, tell me a little bit more about your interests within the field of archaeology and, I guess, textile archaeology.
My interests are mainly mainly on Peruvian and other pre-Columbian textiles. Interests within like kind of archaeology. I'm pretty varied. I'm one of those people who just like goes on JSTOR and like reads every article I can find. That's something I would definitely recommend as well if you're trying to figure out what field you want to go into. Just go to the library, do a bunch of database research, and like figure out like
That's awesome.
what like research articles are like particularly interesting to you. That's something that I did and that really helped. Yeah, I have a lot of varied interests. Another like weird pet interest of mine is like medieval English wool. I did a deep dive on that recently. That's kind of one of my interests, academic interests right now. Yeah, just kind of broad textile research in general is.
I want to hear more about medieval English wool.
You want to hear more about medieval English wool?
Yes.
Okay. Like sheep domestication, I can tell you about like sheep domestication. I can tell you about a lot of different things. So sheep domestication in England went from like dark breed like things that you can't like really dye, and then eventually it was bred to be like white and like long staple, which means like long haired, right? Kind of like if you think about a goat. And then eventually it was bred down to like medieval wool, which is like medium staple, which is kind of like the fluffy sheep that you see today. And there are very few medieval flocks of sheep left. I know where each of them are. There's one in Oregon. There's one in Scotland, and then there's one in Wales. And yeah.
Are they wild or like?
No. They're kept. They're like heritage breeds, and I bought wool. I had to special order wool for one of them because I wanted to see what it was like, and I wanted to spin it. And yeah, that's that's one of my pet research interests right now is like sheep domestication. It's super weird, but yeah.
No, that's totally cool.
Yeah.
So speaking of interests outside of academia, what are your hobbies or favorite pastimes?
I do a lot of crafts. I crochet, I embroider. My main hobby is historical costuming. So I do like historically accurate dress reproductions. And I do like a lot of vintage sewing. I've been in the choir on campus since my sophomore year, I think. Those are kind of my main hobbies and pastimes outside of school.
So vintage sewing and historical dressmaking. What are some of the ones that you made? That sounds really awesome.
I made last year, 2 years ago for Halloween, I made 1793 like chemise à la reine, which is like oh gosh, it's kind of like an open robe, like kind of 18th century dress. I've also made two like hand embroidered like Regency
wow.
gowns. Those took forever. I've made an 1860s ensemble. I've made an 1880s and 1890s ensemble. I've also made a couple of like I've made a bunch of like mid-century like 50s dresses. I've made a bunch of like early 20th century stuff as well.
Oh wow.
Just kind of like wardrobe staple pieces, but yeah.
Wow. So, does that at all connect to your interest in textiles?
It does and it doesn't. They're kind of separate things. I kind of found my love of textiles through like historical costuming and historical fashion, like and just like researching historical textiles, and then that kind of like sent me down the rabbit hole. But my interests in textiles today, right now, are kind of completely like they're a lot more technical and a lot more like um, yeah, I think technical is the right word. A lot more specific than like, and also they're not really focused in Europe as much.
Hmm. So, I remember you talked about buying the wool and spinning it. Is there a lot of that kind of hands-on approach in textile archaeology?
Sometimes there is. Sometimes there is. Sometimes there isn't. There's a field called like experimental archaeology, where you kind of try to recreate the methods that were used in order to like better understand how these items would be like used, or like potential uses for the items. So that's definitely something. That's definitely something that people do. But mine is kind of more like just kind of nerdy interests of like, oh, I kind of want to do it how they did it, and then like figure it out from there.
So do you have like sets of tools that are, I guess, historically accurate to create?
I do actually. It's super nerdy. There are places that sell like historical reproduction
Oh wow.
stuff. You have to kind of special order it. Like I have like a medieval spindle. I have it's not anything pretty. It's like a fucking swoops. It's like it's like a stick, and then it has like a little metal thing on the end of it. It's really not like anything special. But yeah. Yeah, I have like a couple, like I have like historically accurate like bone awl, which is like the thing you poke like eyelet holes with. I have like oh gosh, I try to like only use like natural fibers, like or like historically accurate fibers. I also get really nerdy about like which time periods would have had access to like which textiles and which fabrics. Yeah, just kind of all that stuff. I get super nerdy about. Yeah.
Do you actually that's really cool. So this is kind of, I guess, going back in time. This is a question that I skipped over, but you said your dad was a professor here. Did you grow up in LA?
I did, yes. Yeah, I grew up kind of all over LA. We kind of moved around a little bit. Yeah, first part of LA, I lived in like West Adams, like moved to El Sereno, and then now I've lived in Echo Park for the last like 8 years. So
cool.
yeah,
cool. Is your dad, what field is your dad in?
So here's the funny thing. He started off in the English department. He's a linguist. He started off in the English department. Then, the semester before I started, he moved to the anthropology department. Um,
Wow.
awkward, very awkward. I kind of majored in anthropology before I actually thought through the fact that, oh God, I'm going to have to take a class with my dad for my major, because he's the
Oh.
only one that teaches it and it's
Oh my
required.
gosh.
Yeah, kind of like one of those awkward moments where I was like, oh God.
What was that like?
Extremely awkward, especially now that he's the chair of my department right
Oh
now.
wow.
Sucks. Yeah. Luckily, none of my professors hold it against me. But yeah,
Mm.
that was definitely a concern when I first started. I was like, oh God, Dad, why? Like that was definitely a concern. Is that like I was afraid that like my professors would think that I was just like in the major because I thought it would be like easy because my dad was in it. That was definitely a fear when I started out, but luckily none of my professors think that. So
Yeah. So, do you have an idol?
oh gosh, I don't know. I have people that I like in my life that I like will take advice from and that like kind of guide me in different ways. Um, I don't know, like my dad is a big inspiration for me in terms of my field and in terms of like kind of like where I want to go in the future. My stepmom as well really kind of pushed me into the program, and she's like given me advice, a whole bunch of advice along the way. Yeah, my friends that I've made in the program, like when I was like a first year, like my friends that I made that were like older than me really kind of helped me like through the process. Yeah, just kind of all those people.
Yeah. So, maybe this is kind of branching out, but do you think the kind of age restriction in the kitchen has prevented that kind of mentorship and that mingling of experience with inexperience?
Definitely, absolutely. Yeah. I don't know. I think that I mean, sure, there are going to be like some like 17-year-olds who are like in their fourth and fifth year, like sure, but like I don't know. For me, at least, kind of interacting with people who were like much old, like kind of not much older, but like 4 or 5 years older than me, it was kind of like how I like kind of found my grounding. And I also think it's important for like policing in the kitchen as well, because people do stupid stuff in here a lot. And yeah, I think all those things are kind of important. And again, like all of my friends were like over 18 when I made friends with them in my second year, and I don't know what I would like how I would have like formed my current friend group and like my current like friendships if it wasn't for like the kitchen.
Yeah.
So yeah, just from my like personal perspective, it's a little bit strange. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember you talked about uh, how EEP was advertised to you as like a high school type environment. I didn't go to high school, so I don't have like a comparison, but like, what would you say are like the biggest differences?
I went to a non-traditional like middle school and high school. I went to an arts high school that was in a warehouse. So
Oh, wow.
I was never going to have a traditional high school experience anyways. But yeah, just from like what other people say, like differences of like, well, I was advertised like, oh look, we have dances and we have like lounge areas, and there's like this whole community of like high school aged people. But you don't understand is that like college classes are just kind of like, and college environment is just kind of like fundamentally different from a high school environment. Even though you're the same age as a middle schooler or high schooler, it's not going to be like a similar experience at all.
Yeah, totally. Let's see. So, was there a particular moment when you realized that, I guess, that your STEM major wasn't right for you.
Okay. Yep. I took bio 1100 in like my like fall semester sophomore year, and I was trying to take physics 1100 at the same time, and I just no, I was just like nope, not for me. Just started taking it, and I was like nope, not gonna do any more of this. Bye. Like that was kind of like my immediate like no,
Really?
not for me. No reaction. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, was there, I guess, how do you, I guess, break out of that kind of pressure that's put on a lot of Eepsters to excel in, I guess what you said, like, what's considered academic or being academic enough?
Yeah. What I think it's honestly just a shift in mindset. Once I kind of realized that any field that is on a college campus is like has academic qualities and can be academic, that's kind of like when I was like, okay, I can shift myself out of this mindset. Anthropology is extremely academic. It's an academic field. Art, as it's taught in college, is an academic field, and that's something that I feel like a lot of people struggle to like wrap their minds around. If you're passionate about something, if you have the drive to like get into the theory, and if you have the drive to like get into like really like dive deep into it, then it's going to be an academic field. And I feel like that's something, and it's not going to be like as like flashy as being like a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer or like doing like fancy STEM research or whatever at an R1, but I think that it's just kind of breaking out of those like mindsets is like kind of the most important thing, and like figuring out what actually makes you happy.
How do you think I guess EEP can combat that sort of, or try and expose new EEPsters to?
Can I be mild? Can I be very mildly controversial?
Of course, yeah.
Okay. I feel like the whole I've just been seeing all these emails and like kind of like this whole thing of like EEPsters should be like the leaders and like the this and the that, right? Like I find that to be kind of in a strange way very like unacademic, and kind of like lends itself to that kind of mentality of like you're supposed to be a leader, you're supposed to be in these like upper echelons and like supposed to be in this like top field, right? Like this new up and coming like field in this like, or like this like R1 or this like special law school or this like med school or like do electrical engineering or do computer science or like et cetera, et cetera. I feel like that's kind of like the mentality that you kind of like a lot of people in the program have, and even like a lot of the administration have as well, is like you're supposed to be like operating at this like top level and this like, and you're supposed to be like the leader and you're supposed to be a leader in your field. And I feel like if you look at how like academia is structured in general, that's kind of not how it works and not how it goes. And I feel like that mindset kind of more lends itself to like almost more of like a business school approach. Yeah, it's just a little strange to me. Once I saw that kind of like rhetoric shift happen, I was like, oh, this is a little weird. This is a little
Rhetoric
strange.
shift. When would you say that that was?
Oh gosh, probably at least for me, like going into the program, my year was kind of strange and transitional. We were like the year, like the first year that Dr. Maddox like wasn't program director, but we were kind of like in an in-between period where Dr. Maddox wasn't program director, but Dr. Arias like hadn't. Dr. Arias came in at the end of my beginning of my second year, end of my first year, and that was I feel like that kind of like power shift was when like, and also like Honors College kind of having a little bit more control over the program in general. That was kind of like when the rhetoric shift happened, at least in my opinion.
Yeah. So, I guess, where do you see yourself in, let's say, 5 years from now?
5 years, probably still in a PhD program. Yeah, those things take like 5 to 7 years. So I'm like, yeah, probably doing research, working on my thesis. Yeah, that's kind of where I see myself. Kind of boring, but yeah.
Do you want to tell us more about your thesis? I guess without like exposing your novel discoveries.
Oh God, no. Probably no. Well, maybe some new ones, but probably no. Nothing super novel. Yeah. I can get really nerdy about it, but there's like, oh gosh, I can show pictures. Tons of stuff. So there's this thing called like open gauze weaving, where it's like, so you weave like kind of basic like lattice structure, and then you go in with the same thread and you like weave like kind of semi embroider patterns within the gauze. And so I'm looking at these chunky gauzes that have that kind of structure and pattern to them, and then comparing them to modern forms of weaving and trying to figure out the similarities and trying to figure out the differences.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I am kind of out of questions for now.
All right.
Do you have anything that you would like to say to the viewers or future viewers before we wrap up?
Oh gosh. My main thing is that don't be a STEM major because your parents tell you to. That's my main advice. Don't be STEM, or don't be poli-sci, or don't be anything because your parents want you to be, or because you think it's like the cool thing, or like the thing that your peers are doing, or stuff like that. That's my main advice in general to a lot of Eepsters, is also chill out. You're like 13. Just calm down. That's my main advice. Just calm down. Everything will be fine. Your grade in like history 2050 does not matter. Just go. Just be there. Like just write the essay and be done with it. It doesn't have to be a work of art. Yeah. That's my main advice.
Great.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah.
It was really great to have you, to talk to you.
It was nice to
Yeah.
chat. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.